On this episode of Sega Talk, we look at over 15 Jet Set Radio-inspired games. So sit back, tune in, and...
let's look at the funk.
SegaBits presents Sega Talk, a podcast talking all things Sega! With your hosts, George and Barry.
Look, it's a giant talking egg. I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to the master here. Say what?
Hello, and welcome to Sega Talk 152. I'm your bombastic host, Professor George. And with me, like always, is my jet-setting co-host, Funkotronic Barry.
Funko. Oh, okay. Thank you.
Funk.
First, I thought you were going to call me a Funko Pop, and then you were calling me Fucko, and I'm like, that's a new one from you.
Funko Pop. Maybe that could be a brand of
Fucko Pop, like a off-brand
like
for adults.
Yeah, a fake one. Yeah, we'll do like just I guess problematic celebrities would be our Who would be your problematic celebrity? I want to do Pee Wee Hermit.
Probably Diddy.
Diddy, yeah, that's a good one. I think he's hot
or maybe
right now.
Bill Cosby.
He's probably more popular right now than he's been in like 20 years. But yeah. So tell everyone about the Patreon's memories for this episode, since it was a Patreon pick.
Right. Yeah. So if you support us on Patreon at any tier, you get the show audio early, video early. You even get to tell us what to talk about. And, George, I got to get serious. We've lost some patrons, and maybe it's because we talked about Diddy and Bill Cosby at the beginning of the show. But we gotta bump those numbers up, guys. Come on, we've been doing this for years. We've got 150 something episodes, free content for many of you, and just showing us a little support goes a long way. And we don't hide how much we make. You go to our patreon.com/segabits, and maybe this is my way to get people to look at it, because let's see how much they make. Now take that, half it between us. That's like what?
25
lunch?
Bucks? Yeah. A nice lunch, though. Like,
I guess so.
Maybe, the beer would have to be out of our pocket, but...
I'm not going to big us up much, but we play games, we do research, we sit down to record these. Now, I'm not going to tell you guys what I make an hour at my job, but it's definitely not $25 a month.
He's bragging. He's bragging.
But in any case, yeah. It's like Napoleon Dynamite, where he's like, I just made $7. That's like $1 an hour. Yeah, so in our case, I just made $25. That's like $1 a day. But in any case, we very much appreciate our supporters, and we'd like to have more of them. So please check us out, patreon.com/segabits. And as you mentioned, George, this was a pick. This was a pick from Daniel Andres, who initially wanted Bomb Rush Cyberfunk, but I talked to him and I said, we're going to do like a general one, because Sega Talk, it's all about Sega, and Bomb Rush, we'll get to that one. But he has his memories here, and I guess I'm going to read through it, and then I'm going to give my vocal cords a long break after that. But Daniel's memories say, oh hell yeah, I'm so happy that you guys are doing an episode about this topic. This is going to be lit. I can't wait to see and hear how this one turns out, and I bet that Barry is very excited as well. All right, so when I first played and got into Sunset Overdrive, it was around the year of 2016, and that's when I first picked up an Xbox One. I already knew that the game since its launch, but knew next to nothing about it at the time. I got into Dreamcast in general for the very first time in summer of 2013, and not too long after that, I obviously had to pick up JSR, baby. Ow. I think he writes these just so he can hear me say them.
Yeah.
I love Jet Set Radio very, very much. The characters, the music, the atmosphere, the story, Professor K's iconic voice, the funk, but it's one of the hardest games that I have ever attempted to finish. I'm very happy that I'm very happy that I beat that game, but I am not the most skilled player at it. In fact, I didn't beat it until fairly recently, around the beginning of this year. Holy crap, that's roughly a bit over 10 years. Barry, I am so sorry. However, I really love Jet Set Radio Future, and am stoked to play through that whole game. I'm taking my sweet time, though, because I have a lot of games to get through in general. Now, for the big game. I guess since we already swore, I can swear again. Motherfucking badass peak Bomb Rush Cyberfunk. Holy moly, guacamole. This game is by far the coolest game that I've ever played in my entire life. Cooler than any Sonic game in the world, including the kick-ass SA2. Cooler than any Tony Hawk game, and cooler than any other Sega. Wow, any game Sega's ever made in-house. Now that doesn't mean it's the best game I've ever played or my favorite game ever, but its cool factor is indeed balls off the wall, above the charts. Here's the story of how I first discovered it. I thought he was going to go into like a Fresh Prince of Bel-Air thing. Here's a story. So back in July 2022, I got my job at Retro Taku Video Games. During my training period in Madison Heights, I met my friend Devin. He's one of the managers at the store, and he was playing music from a peculiar website that caught my eye, JetSetRadio.live. Before I knew it, we were immediately bonded over our love of Sega and Nintendo games. Wow, Sega and Nintendo coming together. During our long-winded yet fun discussions, he asked me, "Are you excited for Bomb Rush Cyberfunk?" Bomb Rush what? I had no idea what he was talking about. He then pulled up the trailer of the game on YouTube, and all of the employees all gathered around. You guys are supposed to be working, come on. And we watched it. Get to work! And we watched it, including me. Holy crap, it was Jet Set Radio. Oh, Jet Set 3, I couldn't believe it. I desperately tried to get this game for the Xbox Series X. For the longest time, I missed out on playing it at release solely because I valued having it physically over digitally. Well, fast forward until early August this year, or maybe it was late July, practically a year after the game's release and 2 years after I got introduced to the game, I said, fuck it, and bought this banger on a Steam sale. I also think that the game's 1 year anniversary, after the game's intro, and after Red adopts Fau's body, with the hype immediately kicked in. George and Barry, you guys can do this episode without it. At least playing some of the music from the game in the background. Please, it's inexcusable, IMO. But yeah, it clicked with me. The OST, the skateboarding, the setting, the tricks, the graffiti, the dance moves, the gameplay itself, the way how every character oozed with freshness and coolestness. Hell yeah, hell yeah, hell yeah, man. Bomb Rush Cyberfunk is indeed 110% the coolest game ever. Shortly after that, I was able to get my physical Xbox copy of the game and have been playing it all the way through ever since. I streamed this game one night with my friend Tony Hawk maybe, I don't know, to show it off to him. Yeah, and right away, man, it had the same effect on him. He was in awe. I could hear it in his voice as he said very faintly, "I need to get this game." And I saw that he put it on his Steam wish list right after that. I know that BRC is not technically a Sega game, but let's be real, it's the best Sega-like designed game ever made that is inspired off a Sega product. I have not played Penny's Big Breakaway, but I don't think it's going to top this. If you folks out there listening to this have not yet played Bomb Rush Cyberfunk yet, what the heck are you guys doing? Go and play it after you listen to this episode. Your life will improve greatly with this game in it. Believe me, I'm only about 25% done with this game, and I can already tell how much of a goated banger with this game. There is no what does this game get good moment with BRC. It's 100/10 peak. Right at the beginning, bro, and don't you forget it. Woo! So
I'm just going to say I agree with him because, like, right after I played this game, my life got so much better. My job...
Really?
They gave me a promotion. I got, like, $50 more. I'm a senior now at the company. I get to work from home. I also beat my personal best lifting record, and it's all thanks to
well, keep playing it. We have a big election coming up. Maybe things will go the right way. I mean, we got Dreamcast. We have a fellow Dreamcaster on the ticket, so... I mean, this. Can we just endorse Tim? Come on, he's playing he's playing Crazy Taxi.
If he gets the vice president, he will be the best vice president of all time. I think we could all agree on that.
Can we send Crazy Taxi to the Oval Office?
Maybe if he gets elected. He did talk about the mod on the live stream. Did you see that? The Twitch.
Yeah. The fan made mod. I wonder if he ever played Jet Set Radio.
I'm sure.
Probably not.
So
maybe.
I mean, he had a Dreamcast. It was pretty popular. But today we'll be talking about games inspired by Jet Set Radio. And before we talk about this, we know that there was 2 games, one on Dreamcast, one on the Xbox sequel. We both have episodes for both of those. You'll be able to see them on top here if you want to watch those.
Yeah.
But you're obviously the ones that did those episodes because you're a massive Jet Set Radio fan. So can you tell people at home why you like Jet Set Radio and why do you think there's over 15 inspired games of this franchise?
Well, I think very much like Sonic, Jet Set Radio inspires a lot of budding developers. I think it just has a recipe and energy and vibe that is kind of unmatched. And I think for me personally, I grew up loving Sonic the Hedgehog, and it really wasn't until the Dreamcast era that I branched out and started really experiencing what other Sega developers had to offer. Because for me, it was the Genesis. I skipped the Saturn, and then I went right to the Dreamcast. And Dreamcast was when they took all of their developers and really gave them their own studio name. So you really can't blame me as a kid for being like, knowing the difference between the people who made Sonic and the people who made Golden Axe or Streets of Rage. Like, to me, these were just games that happened to exist on the Genesis, just like, any of the third-party stuff, which at the time, I didn't really know the difference between first and third-party. Like, Virgin Interactive might as well have been just as, like, Sega to me as, like, Sonic the Hedgehog. But, yeah, when Jet Set Radio came out, it was really a game that I think it grabbed me just as much as the original Sonic did. I think the visuals, the music, the character designs, and the speed. Like, to be quite honest, I love Sonic Adventure. I love Sonic Adventure 2. But Jet Set Radio, at the time, I was like, this is kind of like a better platformer than those games to me. Like, and I think a big reason was that it was the gameplay style was really like open world 3D Sonic. I mean, there was grinding in Sonic Adventure 2.
That's an interesting thing. When I was playing Cyberpunk, I was like, is this more, or another game, I forgot which one I was playing. Oh, it was that other one, the Sunset Overdrive. I was like, is this more like Sonic or is this like Jet Set Radio? Because technically both those games have grinding in it, only that obviously the open world and the idea of grinding in an open world is more of a Jet Set Radio idea, right?
Right,
compared,
exactly. Right. So that's really what hooked me on the series. And I really love how the Jet Set Radio series is very unserious. Like, there is lore, but it's about as like deep as like a teenager like making up their own like manga. Like it's just and the game itself is really like a sketchbook come to life, which is why I feel like each game is just like a kid taking out a new sketchbook, still drawing in his similar style, but like not being bound to like, this character is related to this character in that way. That's why I loved in Jet Set Radio Future, they were just like, oh yeah, Yo-Yo's the main character now. And you'd never guess that looking at the cover. It's like, why is Beat on the cover, but Yo-Yo's the star? But that, yeah, so, I love Jet Set Radio. I love all the weirdness of it. If you check out segabits.com, there's an article I posted on Halloween where it was sourcing the masks from the Latch Brothers, who are the Beastie Boys spin-off group. And I was like, how hard would it be to dress up like the Latch Brothers? And honestly, it's not that hard. It costs you about $200. So, yeah, check that out.
So the next question, I guess, how long have you been hearing about development news on an indie game or a Jet Set Radio-like project, some that maybe never came out or never outside of just announcing? Because for me, it's been all the way to like since the Xbox one came out. I remember being informed, and there's like indie people talking about like, I'm developing the third game if they're never going to make it.
2004, I'd say. I feel like it started because people were like, they wanted to be copycats, but then when time went on, they're like, oh, we're not getting the third game. We're going to be the one to make the third game,
right.
And I don't know if people are going to like my answers coming up.
Okay, so I was going to say, what's your thoughts on the idea of a new team making their own Jet Set Radio type games?
I'm very weird about this and this is going to be an interesting episode for me because I actually don't like it.
I actually kind of vibed with the same way as you because, like, I tried not to look at the news because I would get upset and overpick it, and I feel like I'll just, like, get myself upset over nothing because it's like they have the right to do this game, but it just feels like it would just make me get upset for no reason. That's how I feel.
I've gotten into this before. I feel like as time goes on, my strong opinions lessen, or I just have a harder time articulating why. And I think it's because now that Sega's coming back with Jet Set Radio, like, we're gonna get a new game. I'm not as bothered by these imitators, especially when you look at how different Jet Set Radio 1 is from Future and how Future is going to be from the upcoming game. So a game like Bomb Rush Cyberpunk, it's really emulating the Xbox style. And who knows how close the upcoming game will be. So in that regard, it doesn't bother me much anymore. I think my issue really was, and I'll just get it out of the way now so we don't have to talk about it later, but like the whole spiritual successor thing. To me, you are not a spiritual successor if absolutely no one on your team previously worked on the game. And if you're like hiring
a composer
Naganuma to like that doesn't work that way. It's like, it's
he's
almost
a contractor.
Like right, but it's also kind of like you're buying an element, the easiest element to replicate because he's a contractor, and you can bring him in. But I always found that phrase to be a little demeaning. I don't know, like if I did something that I was really proud of, but I moved on and never repeated myself, and then someone just came out and started kind of emulating it. Like if we ended Sega Talk because we don't have enough Patreon people, and then a month later someone's like, a month later, someone comes out and starts doing the same format that we do. They even like use a similar name, and they're like, "We're the spiritual successor to Sega." Yeah, they're like, "We're the spiritual successor to Sega Talk. We love Barry and George, but they stopped doing the show. We're going to do it now." Wouldn't you be a little annoyed?
I'd be a little. Actually, I don't know. I think I'd be a little honored in a way because somebody actually kind of like did it, but maybe a little bit annoyed, but. So my idea behind it is, I try not to see it because I know they're going to change things. And I think once we start seeing these games, a lot of these games actually do get a lot of aspects of it right. A lot of people, and some of these games actually take what they like about Jet Set Radio and try to add their own spin on it and not just be a copycat version of Jet Set Radio. So I found that kind of interesting way of looking at it when people look for games that are inspired by Jet Set Radio. But, have you played any of these? I guess we talked about it, inspired. Have you played any of the games people have claimed to be Jet Set Radio inspired games in the past?
I have. Yeah, I've been a Patreon supporter for a few of them.
Okay,
some of these I have. Some of these on here, but I'll be honest. I think the way I could describe it is it's kind of like. You had a boyfriend or a girlfriend, and they were a very specific type of person, and then they leave you. Now, do you go out and find someone exactly like them, or do you just wait until they come back into your life? And for me, I just wanted Sega to bring Jet Set Radio back, and I didn't have an interest in anything that wasn't Jet Set Radio, in the hope that they would also bring back the original creators of the game, because I'll be honest, even the Wii pitch, that Jet Set Radio Wii from a different team, had that been made, I'd probably not like that game. And I'm kind of the same way with Samba de Amigo on the Wii, where it's not the original Japanese team and it shows. It's lacking. So that's honestly, like, I saw the same thing with Shenmue. Like, fan games would come out and they're like, it's a spiritual successor to Shenmue. It's very similar to Shenmue. I'm like, I just want to hear Ryo's journey continue.
Right. Yeah.
That's why, to be quite honest, Shenmue 3, as crummy as some elements are, it is from Yu Suzuki. It's the story continued. So that's more exciting to me than a game that is like plays similarly to Shenmue. I don't play Shenmue for all of the gameplay elements. I play it for the story. Now with Jet Set Radio, I play it for the art style, the music, and so all right, that's that. I won't talk about this anymore.
We'll get into the games now. So unsurprisingly, There's quite a bit of games influenced directly by Jet Set Radio. So much so that our listeners might be shocked to know that there's going to be over 15 games we're going to be talking about in this list. Some are more obvious in inspiration, and some are more or less inspired, and you could be a judge of those. And I guess we'll judge them along the way. I want to thank Reddit user Tara Vale for making a list on Reddit to make these easily accessible for everyone. So thank him. The first game we're going to be looking at is this game called Zenith, and this is going to be probably the lowest, I guess, project or lowest budget project. It's a student project, and it's so popular that this trailer has 250,000 views for a student project. That's a big success. So he made this by himself, and he released it 12 years ago. And a lot of people think the skating and the movement is really interesting, and some of the colors. So it reminds them a lot of Jet Set Radio. And you could download the demo on his Tumblr, and it's on PC and Mac. So let's look at the trailer. Okay, let's play.
So when I look at this, two things that immediately come to mind are one game that I have played and another game that I've read about. The one I've played, and I'm sure you know it, it's, I believe, a PlayStation game where it's a continuous journey, like down a hill. Do you remember that?
Journey? Is that what it's called?
Is it Journey?
I
think it's called Journey.
Yeah, okay.
And this looks a lot like that. It also reminds me of that game that was emulating Mobius's style. That was a few years ago.
Yeah.
I don't know if it ever came out.
I don't know, but yeah, I know what you mean. This game just looks trippy. I really like the... obviously, he had to do it himself, so you could tell that he just put blocks of colors in places. But I think it works. I think it all works together. He made it look pretty nice for what time he had as a student project. I think the movement looks good. And I could definitely see why people would call this a Jet Set Radio kind of influenced student project. And it even has a little rewind feature.
Yeah, which I think another game we'll look at in a little bit has one, which is a good and a bad thing.
You think so?
I think a rewind feature sometimes is a band-aid for a broken game.
So this gives you an idea already. We don't have to see the whole thing. So it gives you...
I think it looks very cool.
Yeah, for a student project, this is really cool. So this is a free demo you guys want to do. It came out 12 years ago. It's crazy. I've never even heard of it until I was doing the notes for this. Let's talk about the next game. This one's called Project Feline, and this is a pre-alpha trailer. So it's a furry inspired type game. It's not cel shaded. There's gonna be 2 furry inspired cel shaded games. Why do you think? There's like pop fans.
Is this the avatar for our website designer?
I think so. Maybe they're
SegaBit's website.
I think
doesn't it look like?
Oh yeah, I think he's
Nico.
I think this is his game. Oh, I played it. I don't know. You want to play it?
Oh, the trailer. Yeah, it's very short.
Yeah, I'm playing it. So, yeah, you can see the animation isn't all there yet. It's very much an alpha, but you can tell what they're going for with the cat. It seems to have more corridors and like. I don't know what to even say, like boxes and military stuff.
It's very Sonic Lost Worldy.
Right.
In the wall running.
Right.
Yeah. It's what Sonic Lost World was trying to be.
And it even has a combat system they're working on, so it's very interesting stuff. So overall, probably not for me, but it's a very interesting game. I think it's very cool that this guy took it and made it his own with his own like type of art style and didn't just go cel shaded, just copy and paste the colors from Jet Set Radio and call it a day. You guys could I think he has a website where you could fund this project if you guys want to, projectfeline.com, and I think it's in early access. I think he made a trailer 2 years ago, so there hasn't been an update really for the project for a couple of years, and I think that happens a lot with these indie developers. So the next one is another furry game. I put them together for you. So this one's a little longer. We won't watch it all, but this one is called Neon Tail, and this one's also an early access, which is now popular. 3.2 trailer. We'll watch a little bit of it and then we'll discuss it. We'll watch like a minute. I'll play it now.
Yeah.
This is it has a Space Channel 5.
It has a very Space Channel 5 and Phantasy Star universe vibe.
Yeah.
Like where it kind of looks like PSO, but like cheap.
Right.
No offense to them. Like if anything, I'm insulting Phantasy Star universe.
Remember Virtual World or whatever that game came out?
Oh, Virtual Quest.
Quest, there you go. It reminds me of that, kind of like, it's a kid's show, kind of. You can see that it's obviously an indie game, but I think they have like I said, it's 3D, it has its own style. Very neon. They like the neon lights, I've noticed, with the art style.
It is a very Jet Set Radio future kind of game, though. Looking at it, yeah.
And the girl reminds me of like maybe some like Space Channel 5 type thing going. So this is this game, Neon Tail, and they say it's an open world roller skating game where you follow a young girl's adventure and save the streets of Blue Pole City from dimensional disaster. She will meet colorful characters and explore fantastic locations of the city from its various districts, shopping, business, residential, and its subways and sewers and unknown planes of existence.
That's strange because we're halfway through the trailer. It looks like Gun Valkyrie.
Oh, let me see. I'll put it.
Doesn't it? It like looks like.
Oh yeah, it does.
Panzer Dragoon or Gun Valkyrie.
Gun Valkyrie for sure.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Actually, I didn't see that far last time, I think. Oh, this is actually more interesting than I thought. I think it's more ambitious than just a Jet Set Radio. I mean, they literally have like a Gun Valkyrie shooting, fighting.
It's about like 4 different SEGA games mashed together, like Space Channel 5, Jet Set. Yeah, it's interesting.
And the next game actually is a game that is actually released finally. I'm gonna. It's just the gameplay in the back, so I'm gonna start playing it at 4:20, 4 minutes and 20 seconds.
Nice.
So,
good one, bro.
Well, because that's where the gameplay starts. But it's
that's where the fun starts, right, man?
That's right, man.
There you go.
So, oh man, right away a hint. All right. So Skate City draws on the very best elements from the great Tony Hawk and Jet Set Radio series, fused into its own ingredients to make the most coolest, most creative, and downright fun skateboarding game we've seen on any platform. Available on Sony PlayStation, PSP, PSP. You can play it whenever and wherever you go. Go skating on a train, in a plane, or even in your very own skate park in your city.
Nice.
The music is very bland, so I would say the music definitely is not an inspiration here for either games, who are known for their bombastic soundtracks. It looks very low budget, but besides that, it looks more, in my opinion, Tony Hawk.
Was this European only?
I think so, yes. I've never seen this game in the wild, to be honest. Have you seen this?
Yeah, I don't see any like English rated ones. Because 3+ is not American, is it?
That's
no.
PAL.
It looks. I kind of like it though. Like I kind of have a thing for like PlayStation era, like kind of rip off anime. Like tee off golf. Like I played tee off golf, and it's like big head, little body golfers.
Oh, and it reminds you of this.
Yeah, just because it's kind of like they hide the anime aspect on the cover, and then you play it and you're like, this is very clearly made in Japan, but they're hiding that aspect from us.
Right. I think it's cool. I think it's a cool little PSP game that was probably low budget, went under the radar. I guess people could see it. I've never played it before, but I might pop it on an emulator one day and give it a go. I don't have a PSP. Sorry, guys. I'm not rich like you guys.
I gotta get one.
The next game is actually an interesting game because it's episodic. It's called Butterflies. So Butterflies is an indie-developed episodic game by High Razor, which is obviously inspired by Jet Set Radio, featuring, you guessed it, inline skating, and the game has 3 episodes out. Looks pretty sick in my opinion, and you could go to their Twitch itch.io where they it's like, so this is how they describe it. Butterflies is a game about inline skating and graffiti. Apparently some people did that before, but they don't seem to like they'll be doing it anymore. Meaning it's like Jet Set Radio, but the guys don't like doing Jet Set Radio anymore. Obviously that changed. Obviously that changed recently, but this is before that. This is the trailer for episode 1. Trailer 1. This episode's called Rudy. So if you want to play the demos, you guys could go on and just Google Butterflies Jet Set Radio. Probably. Let's play it.
And I think this is starting to get into the territory where I'm kind of like put off a little bit, just because I'm like, it's inline skating, it's graffiti, you're using the name Rudy's, it looks like a straight up imitation. And
it kind of looks more painted, I guess. I would say than cel shaded. I think they're going for that, but definitely they're wearing the inspiration on their sleeve.
It's very muddy.
Right.
I don't like the colors.
I think they're trying to go for like a darker tone, more teal. Like they don't want to copy the color palette. So I guess that makes it different, but definitely not as vibrant as Jet Set Radio.
Now,
Cops?
I know it's not on the list, but what is that game? It was on consoles and mobile. It was like a paint game where it was like a splatty guy. And like everything was black and white, and then he was bringing color into the world.
Epic Mickey?
No, but that maybe that's what they're going for here, where it's like a very boring looking.
And you go and tag.
Yeah. I'll have to think it up. I don't think it's very Jet Set Radio inspired, but still, I feel like it maybe is a little Jet Set Radio inspired, but.
So what's your overall thoughts on this game? You said that these are the type of games that get you a little like, oh, I don't know, we're getting a little too close here. There's some differences, right? I would say the characters are more, I guess, I don't know, like Afro Samurai hip hop inspired. Obviously, they still have the same type of clothing in a way, like the color schemes. But I feel like they try to go for more of a paintbrush style. Out on the background, if you notice the buildings, they look more like they're like how they do Japanese paintings in the olden days, you know?
Yeah.
Black paintbrush, ink brush, kind of like what's that game called? The one with the wolf on it. The one where you play the god and you have the paintbrush and you have to do the thing. It's from Capcom. It's skipping my. It's on the tip of my tongue. Okami, there you go. It reminds me of Okami, like the art style in a way, kind of like what they're trying to do with Kung Fu.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a little mixture they're going for here. This is obviously a very indie game. So
I do like the grittiness. I don't want to be too down on it, but it's the one I was thinking was D-Blob.
Oh,
or D-Blob.
Yeah, from Ubisoft.
And that's for the Wii. In that game, it's a little more maybe Mario Sunshine or precursor to Splatoon, but that definitely was like you're a paint monster fighting like black and white cops, and that's a little Jet Set Radio-y. So the next game is called Poem, and this one's funny because I think he just named the game like 2 days ago before I wrote these notes. So it's like, and he released a new trailer like days ago, so this is a more new game. He says he's waiting for Steam validation, and since on Tuesday he posted this trailer, and it says that I guess he named it Poem, the last summer of mankind. So let's look at the trailer on X or Twitter. Oh boy, thank you. Oh, that's interesting. I like the idea of the UI like coming in. I don't know what the reason for it is, but it's interesting.
Really sick. It kind of makes you feel like you're actually moving quickly.
Yeah. It's got a little bit of Jet Set Radio. It's got a little bit of, and this is going to be the episode where we just keep blanking on names of games.
Right.
The parkour one that was big.
Mirror's Edge?
Yeah, it's got a little Mirror's Edge to it too.
Yeah, very. This one's a pretty cool one. I'll show the website. The website's pretty cool. It's right here. You could see it too. He has GIFs of some of the ideas that he's going for. Like he has this like persona like menu system for talking. So it looks like he's going all out, kind of trying to make his own little AAA version of what he thinks the next Jet Set Radio would be. I think that a lot of these people are like, I wish we had a third one, and this is how I think it would be. So they had combat that they like. They had an RPG mechanic they like. I don't think the next Jet Set Radio would have RPG mechanics, but he says the game will be $20 when it comes out, so not expensive at all. So you guys could check that out. His name is AM Hyde, so that's his developer name. What do you think about this game overall? Playable?
It's very stylish. Like I said, it very much feels like Mirror's Edge. It also feels like the recent PlayStation Spider-Man games with the combat and being able to like perch on top of like tall little things. Very sticky. You know what I mean? Like you'd stick to this and then you jump to that and stick to that. Yeah. To be quite honest, like up to this point, the ones we're looking at, the ones where I get a sense of Jet Set Radio, but it doesn't look like Jet Set Radio, those are the ones that seem to be the most interesting to me. And crazy enough, Zenith is like the one I keep thinking of. Like I really like that.
Oh, you like the student project?
I think it's because it reminds me of Rez. It's almost like what if Rez was Jet Set Radio?
Yeah, actually, you're right. That's actually a pretty good description of that game.
And Journey, I really did like that game, Journey. That reminds me of that, too. Yeah.
The next game we're talking about is this game called, and it's funny that it's on the Xbox website, the trailer, but it's called Yumirangi Generation. Is that how you say it?
I have no idea.
And it's like, in this game, it's a non-skating inspired Jet Set Radio game, and according to its Steam, you're in a shitty future, and you play it set in Terranga, Terraria, and it's like an impending crisis. You're a courier, so it's kind of like Mirror's Edge in a way, because you also deliver mail in Mirror's Edge. I think a lot of people think that the future would be like, no more privacy. We can't send messages through text because of surveillance. So some guy will come and skateboard and look really cool and take your mail for you.
Wow.
Play it. I'm gonna play it. I haven't played it.
Let's do it. Yeah.
It's a picture game, by the way. You take photos. So it's like a parkour photo taking game.
Fatal Frame. It's like Fatal Frame meets Jet Set Radio.
Or kind of like Dead Rising has a mechanic of the first game has a mechanic of taking pictures. So there's that. That one you have to do like have someone get killed really cool, and then you take a picture of it.
I'll be honest, this one's really doing it for me.
You like it?
I love the aesthetics. It actually, that like weird lo-fi kind of reminds me of, and I'm going to call out another real obscure game, EnviroBear for the iPhone, which is the weirdest effing game. It's like before that, what is that, Goose Game or Duck Game, whatever that is.
The Goose
Game. Before Goat Simulator, EnviroBear. Check that out sometime. It's the most manic, like lo-fi weird game. I don't know why this is giving me those vibes, but I also really love the music because when I was a teenager, I was really into drum and bass. Like I have a vinyl stack and I have like gigs worth of music.
So this gets your stamp. You're interested.
I like this one a lot.
Well, it's on Steam, or an Xbox too,
man.
since there's an Xbox trailer. So check that one out. The next game I think is probably the most high budget game. We'll talk about it. Sunset Overdrive by Insomniac Games in 2014. Sunset Overdrive is made by a little indie studio known as Insomniac Games, known for the original Spyro trilogy, Ratchet and Clank games, and the new Spider-Man games people seem to like. This is their Xbox One exclusive at the time. The game has now been released on other platforms. And according to their Steam description, it's a Sunset Overdrive transforms an open world apocalypse into your typical playground. Sip, grind, and wall run across Sunset City with an unconventional arsenal, hyper agility, unique weapons, and customizable abilities. Deliver an explosive and irreverent adventure in the end times. So I played this game. I actually really like this game. This game is like Jet Set Radio grinding, open world mixed with Ratchet and Clank gunplay. So let's look at the trailer. It's 2 minutes. We won't see all of it, just a little bit of it. This is the debut trailer, and it's obvious they're making fun of the games that were popular, war games, as their next one.
Right, because the kids listening to this, they don't know what E3 is, but E3, they would show trailers on these stage shows, and often it would be war game after war game, and it would just get so bland. And so I remember when this trailer came out, it was like kind of a breath of fresh air to have a major studio doing something this offbeat. I also very much get Team Fortress 2 vibes from like the character designs and like the humor.
Right, or not Borderlands, but that other one, the one with the guy that kicks people. I forgot what it's called. Rage 2 or whatever.
Yeah. Kickman.
Yeah, the Kickman game.
But I've played this as well.
So we can talk about it since we both played it. So we don't have to watch the whole trailer, but we can talk about it.
I think weirdly my most favorite aspect is the fact that he like hits your TV and it sounds like an old tube TV.
Yeah.
Like it's like a glass tap. He's like dunk.
Yeah, and they have a lot of cool little sound effects and stuff in this game.
It also is very Gorillaz, like the music group, to the aesthetics. Which I'm surprised there hasn't been a Gorillaz video game, to be honest. Like,
I'm surprised too, actually. But yeah, this game reminds me of that. This is probably one of the games that a lot of people were like, "Yeah, this is Jet Set Radio. If you're a Jet Set Radio fan, play this." I think they do enough to make it its own thing. Obviously, they're very, very inspired by Jet Set Radio's grinding mechanics. There's some really cool platforming elements they add to that. It's very Americanized version of it. So, like, you'll randomly meet the guy from the Melvins, King Buzzo, in the end, and you're like, what the hell? What the hell are you doing here? I saw you in Fresno the other day live. What are you doing in my video game? I literally saw them the same month I played it. And then I was like, wait, what? Oh, man. And he was like literally drinking at the bar right next to the venue, and I was just like, if I knew, I would have taken a copy of the game and asked him to sign it. But no. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, cool game.
Yeah.
So the next game, this one's actually another one that actually was really popular in the Jet Set Radio community. This one's called Hover, Revolt for Gamers. Busty Games 2017, and this is one of the games that got me to not want to see any more of these Jet Set Radio clones, because of the hype, how hype they did, and how they wrote it, and how they didn't deliver, in my opinion.
Oh my god, were you a Kickstarter backer?
I was not a Kickstarter backer. I kind of stopped Kickstarter after I got burnt for a couple projects. So so they're most known for being talked about as a Jet Set Radio sequel, and having a successful Kickstarter that raised over $116,000 that ended back in 2014. The game came out in 2017. I will say that's a decent turnaround, but even though the game has 1,485 positive reviews on Steam, Metacritic only gave it 69%. So I don't know who to believe here, the 1,000 fans that decided this is a good game or Metacritic. I'll play the trailer and we'll look at it and we could talk about it now. It doesn't look offensive, but the art style is very, I guess if you're mimicking it, I would say it's more 3D, Unity, low budget kind of look to it, which is not terrible, but I've seen a lot of indie games that have this type of wannabe cel shaded look. You know what I'm talking about?
Right, and I'll say I did back this on Kickstarter. I waited. I'm looking through my old emails to see when I got it. I got my access key August 2015.
Ooh.
And I don't know when the project started.
I think I think Jet Set Radio 3 unironically is going to be more like this game. It's multiplayer where you could actually play with other people, because that's what the rumors have been saying from what I read, like early rumors, that they're trying to go online with some of these games. So, but outside of that, what? So you backed it. What was your experience backing it, and what do you think? Because I didn't.
Yeah, it's weird. I can't even find the Kickstarter page. I wonder if it got pulled or something or deleted, because I get a... Oh, here it is. Okay. So, last updated on 2018. All right, so let's see. Updates. When did this thing get funded? Man, something's wrong with their Kickstarter page. It's so broken. Okay, yeah. I gave him $10, so I'm okay.
Shit. Okay.
I was not in the hole. But I will say
they did deliver the game at least.
They delivered a game.
A game.
I didn't like the game.
Oh,
I thought
what was your problem with it?
I did not. The trailers did not replicate the kind of gameplay I experienced. I could not get like the flow going. I couldn't replicate the gameplay I was seeing. Instead, I just kept falling and like struggling to like go from one place to another. The game was very reliant on a rewind feature, which was just to save them from the constant falling that you would do.
So it's badly designed.
And it also was a game that very clearly was made for PC, but if you would play it on any other platform, the menus felt like you should have had a mouse. You know what I mean? Like, it was just very weirdly designed. Yeah, just overall, I was disappointed in it. I didn't really like it. I didn't think it was fun.
I do wonder what our people that listen to us think about this game. I haven't played it. I do know there was a lot of hype behind it. And it kind of made me mad because I didn't think it... I thought it was fine to be... But, like, they were literally... There's articles saying the Jet Set Radio 3 is finally happening. No thanks to Sega and stuff. And it's like, come on, bro. It's okay to have spiritual successors. It's like, imagine if they did that. I understand there's been a long time since there was a Jet Set Radio, but like, imagine making fun of like Nintendo because Undertale is a ripoff of that game Mother or whatever it's called, Earthbound. It's a ripoff of Earthbound, so you take that. It's like nobody said that when that game came out, so why?
Right, and I think this is the game that kind of got me a little grumpy about the quote-unquote spiritual successors and fan games, because it was like, let's wait until the game comes out before we even talk shit about the previous games. And why are we talking... Like, two very great Sega games happened. The creatives either didn't want to make them anymore because they were working on Yakuza, or, you know, the games just didn't make money, you know, like...
Because you guys didn't support it enough. That's what happened, really. Like, if they sold enough, they would have more.
And then you're talking shit about the company that made the game that this is based on, and you're acting like this is the true Jet Set Radio 3. You haven't even played it yet. You watched a trailer. And then when that comes out, and people like me play it, who's like, are Jet Set Radio super fans, and they're like, this game's broken and not very fun. You know? And to me, a Jet Set Radio 3 is not broken and not very fun.
And I don't really think of online multiplayer. There's never been that for Jet Set Radio, so I don't know how that would work, but I guess... Well,
there will be for Jet Set Radio 3.
If it's true, yeah. So, we can't... So, next is a team, Reptile Team. We can't talk about Jet Set Radio-inspired games without talking about the team that sort of brought back the Jet Set Radio style to a whole new underground audience. Dutch developer Team Reptile, which consider themselves as making original games with style, according to their website. They started their journey into gaming with a side-scrolling electro-inspired fighting / beat-em-up game called Mega Byte Punch, which is kind of reminds me of like a PlayStation 1 or a Sega Saturn game. So we'll look at that trailer right here real quick. It's only 1:16. I'll play it. So you see, low budget, but it kind of reminds me of like Mega Man 9 that they just released not that long ago, but like with more Sega Saturn colors of the era.
Yeah.
So it's not I don't think it reminds me of any game I played, but there's a lot of games that played like this in the olden days. So it's cool. It looks cool. I've never played it, but it's nice that you have little updates. Looks like a fun little title. It definitely has some fans. It has 62,000 views for the trailer. For a good first game, I think this is pretty good. It even has a multiplayer like Sonic 2.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so that's cool. So what is your thoughts on this?
I think it looks fine. It is very like Sonic meets Mega Man meets like
all these
Saturn.
Childhood 90s, mid-90s games for sure is what it reminded me of. I agree.
Yeah.
So they followed up the game with the crazy... I thought it was crazy popular because I heard about this game a lot. Lethal League, a indie fighting game that got released in 2014 on computers but later ported to consoles. While the game started as a flash game playing with mechanics of the hit and reflect from this game, Megabyte Punch, they debuted it as a mystery game at a UFGT 9 event, and people seemed to like it. So they released a more fleshed out version of Lethal League, showing off at events like EVO and Gamescom. Then they would later get a remake of the title called Lethal League Blaze, which now includes fully 3D models and animations. The original was so low budget it didn't have that. Here is a trailer where you can see the influence. Some people call this, when it came out early, Jet Set Radio said cel-shaded inspired. So we'll look at the trailer and you'll tell me what you think. Because I have played this game. Like right away, the music and the style.
100%, yeah.
So the game, you have this ball, right? And it bounces, and when you touch it, it's your color. And if they get hit by it, you get the point, sort of. So it's like a fighting game, but you're bouncing a ball, which... in my opinion, is really, really smart and really unique for a fighting game to play like this. Because a lot of people think of fighting games as punching the other opponent. And this one, you're just hitting a ball. You're really playing almost like a tennis match. You see? So this game is obviously really popular because of the interesting way that mechanics of... and it has really artistic cel-shaded, like... We've seen a lot of these games right here trying to imitate cel-shaded graphics, and they don't really pull it off that well, and I think they pulled it off in this trailer really well. So I give them credits for that because it really does look like the PlayStation cel-shaded. I think a lot of people can't pull that off even though they try.
For sure, yeah, and worth noting too, Jet Set Radio Future does have a ball game called Death Ball.
Oh, okay. But it doesn't look like that, right? Like
it doesn't, no, but it's interesting that they'd be like...
Yeah.
It's like a rugby sort of game.
So obviously we can't talk about Jet Set Radio clones without talking about Bomb Rush Cyberpunk. And before we came out last year, not that long ago. Before we get into it, what do you think about the name Bomb Rush Cyberpunk? Because I think it's too much, and I always forget. I'm like that Rush bomb game.
I think it's weak.
Yeah.
I think they are all words that I have seen in countless video games. And granted, Jet Set Radio is, those aren't original words, but I think it just rolls off the tongue. It sounds awesome. And it's almost like Chat GPT. Make a parody of Jet Set Radio. Bomb Rush Cyberpunk. And don't we have Cyberpunk already as a game?
Yes, we do.
2049.
I wish they would have just called it Cyberfunk. If they could have, it would have been great. Bomb
Rush Funk.
Right. So after the success of Lethal League, Team Reptile went all in on Jet Set Radio. I bet you they heard all the stories about how the graphics look like Jet Set Radio. But this is, in my opinion, one of the most... one to play if you actually want to play a GSR spiritual successor. And this is me, like... Yeah. I usually want to hate on these games, but this game is really well done. Not knocking others, but they accomplished the look and the feel that almost feels like, hey, I just copied your homework instead of like its own original game. Regardless, the game really does expand on ideas, not only letting you use inline skates, but also skateboards, bikes, and you could even like run if you want to. You get off your board. It has its own tagging mechanics and a very Jet Set Radio inspired story. So the story is basically you're a guy that is getting brought out of prison, and you're like a legendary, one of the top 3 bosses in New Amsterdam. That's what they call it. And when you're escaping, one of the bad guys, one of the other big 3, stops you by cutting your head off. So now you have like a robot head, and they call you Red, and you're trying to get your head back so you could become one of the big 3 and take over New Amsterdam with your new crew called the Bomb Rush Cyberpunk, or the Bomb Rush, I think they're called. But that's the story. Very Jet Set Radio wackiness. The game even got Hideki Naganuma, the original composer, to contribute a song or 2, I think, and he came out calling it a spiritual successor. So on Twitter,
he says a lot of shit on Twitter.
Let's watch the trailer. He does say a lot of stuff, especially about femboys, which is weird, but it's cool. I'm glad he's LGBTQ friendly. Let's watch the trailer for Bomb Rush Cyberpunk.
Yeah.
So what does this remind you right away?
Jet Set Radio Future.
Yeah. It's kind of hard not to say this is it.
I will say, if you're going to ape the style, the game better play like amazingly well. And granted, I have not played this game.
It does. It really does.
But if it plays amazingly well, I have a lot less like angst against it. I think if this game played terribly and it looked like this, no. But having said that, spiritual successor, no way, because you are straight up aping Jet Set Radio Future's look, its gameplay style, and granted you're adding new elements to it, but that's because you have the luxury of
all
hindsight.
the heavy lifting.
You
had all the lefty, like imagine like the guy that like created the first font or whatever. It's like everyone's just gonna ape on him. He's the one that started the process, right? It makes everyone easier.
One of the Sonic mods, they did an amazing thing where you could switch out characters on the fly. And they didn't really bring that into the official games until Sonic Mania Plus with the that mode where like you have benched characters and they switch out. I think that's brilliant. And so I don't want to hate this game, and I don't hate this game. I think it looks very cool. I applaud the effort. I think it's its own thing. It's a fan game that very much is making their own Jet Set Radio game, but it in no way is a Jet Set Radio game, and it in no way is a spiritual successor.
You think you need more of the designers and like the guys that actually, like, if they had the people that designed the characters and maybe a director, maybe you'd be like,
right,
okay,
that's when you start to get into that. And as much as people don't like that Mega Man spiritual successor that came out,
Mighty Number 9,
as much as people didn't like the game, that's a spiritual successor.
More than this.
And Crimson Dragon for the Xbox One, that's a spiritual successor. That was from former Team Andromeda developers. But yeah, I mean, I guess I look to the Sonic fan games. There's so many of them, and not once do I hear people go, "This is spiritual successor to Sonic 3 and Knuckles," because it's like, well, they're very clearly taking what works with Sonic and just applying new stage designs, new characters. And granted, I don't think they like stole anything from SEGA. So I think the greatest accomplishment here is from scratch they were able to make a game that plays like Jet Set Radio Future, which is very cool.
Very talented team here, for sure. Because I thought Lethal League was really smart, like gameplay wise. This one is just like I said, the little things they changed. Like I told you, they had their own tagging mechanic, and this one it's like kind of like I don't know if they do this on iPhone, but you know the screen with the grid where you have to like do your password?
Yeah.
It's almost like that. So you have different grids that you could do. and different tags come out. Very smart. So you could do different tags on the go. They give you boost buttons. They have more fighting, which I think is probably the weakest point of the game because it's very PlayStation 1. No lock on where you just like in midair.
Now, answer this. So when you're in the stage, can you do graffiti whenever you want?
Yeah, but you just go over your old graffiti usually if you already have it.
Oh, okay. But when there's a boss battle, are you not able to do that? And you're like, you just fight?
Yeah, you just fight. At least the first boss. I only fought one boss so far because I've been sick this week, so I haven't really played it. I tried to get as much as I could. So when I played it, the first boss, you just fought him in an arena by itself, and then after you're back in the open world, so you're not in an open world, and there's no tagging. So that boss didn't have any tagging. They do this thing. They do this the whole like get the high score, beat this other gang, and get the high score. So the combo system is basically do as long of a combo as you can and tag as many as you can in between. They have this thing too called it's like an icon. It's like the thing. I don't know if you can see it right here in the trailer. Let me see if they show it. Oh, it's that little thing right here in like 19 seconds. That little thing with the tanned up. They're like these little challenges in every map. So right here it says 6 out of 11. That means you have to find all 6 of them and be able to touch them without touching the ground by just grinding in a row.
Interesting.
So that's a cool mechanic. So they added little cool mechanics like that really do be like oh, I could see the next Jet Set Radio having a similar idea behind it. So very talented team behind it, but a lot of groundwork was already laid by Jet Set Radio.
100%. And I think what I like about these types of games with this one and with some of the other ones that look very Jet Set Radio is that a real Jet Set Radio 3 is going to be taking the latest in technology, the latest in graphics, and trying to really push it. I think people forget that Jet Set Radio Future, it had its own aesthetic, but that was because they were restricted by what the Xbox could
accomplish.
Exactly. So Jet Set Bomb Rush Cyberpunk is emulating Xbox graphics essentially, which
even the
in
textures.
Which in turn is its own like style here. But never once do I think the team behind Jet Set Radio Future were looking at the finished product and saying like, yeah, we actually held back in areas so that it would look jaggy, so that textures would look blurry.
Because that's the cool aesthetic.
They weren't like that. No, they did that because, and I think ideally, like a Jet Set Radio, what we're seeing in those trailers for Jet Set Radio 3 or whatever we're going to call it, I think that's probably closer to the vision that they probably wanted at times. And it's interesting because you see that a lot with these games, like these lo-fi aesthetics and these blocky graphics. And I don't think anyone on the Virtua Fighter team was like, oh, hell yeah, Virtua Fighter 1, we went for those aesthetics. We wanted them to look really blocky and, you know,
that's
crummy.
as good as they got back then.
Right.
So Team Reptile team has announced recently that they're working on a sequel to Bomb Rush Cyberpunk. Okay. What do you think of these inspired clones, and which ones interested you the most of what you've seen here?
Well, I will say this episode has turned me around on Bomb Rush Cyberpunk. I think a lot of the animosity I had towards Jet Set Radio inspired fan games that came out of Hover probably was incorrectly or wrongfully applied to these types of games. So I will definitely give Bomb Rush Cyberpunk a chance. I hate the logo. I didn't mention that.
Yeah,
I think
the logo's
disgusting.
The logo's really bad, actually. Let me put it up
I
on
don't
screen.
have it on me, but just today I got the like $100 art book from Wipeout that I bought like a year ago, and it just shipped and arrived today. The design work for those Wipeout racing games are like next level.
Oh yeah, it's impeccable games. Like the art style
I probably mentioned the studio behind them. The Designers Republic, they were the reason I got into graphic design. The original Wipeout game, yeah. So maybe I'm just hyper focused on like video game UI and graphics, but yeah, Bomb Rush Cyberpunk's logo is a pile of garbage. I hate it.
Yeah, it's just like these weird blobs. They're like the ugly as green colors.
I feel like they did something and then messed around in Photoshop until it looked interesting.
It looked like
Having
they used
said that,
emboss a lot.
yeah, like they made a weird shape and then embossed. But out of all of these, I think Zenith looks really cool to me. And then oddly, Skate Park City looks like a game that I really wish I picked up like at like a used game store 10 years ago and like was like, oh, this is a little hidden gem. And then lastly, the photo one. Which one's that?
That one's Umirangi Generation.
Yeah, that one. I think my favorite ones out of all of these are that one and the Lethal League Blaze trailer, because I really like this idea of games that exist in the aesthetics of Jet Set Radio, but the gameplay style is completely different. And I like the idea of like a first-person adventure through a very Jet Set Radio looking world, but you're taking pictures. That's very cool.
So the picture one is actually on VR, which actually sounds pretty cool. Like, since it's
That's cool. I want to live there.
Yeah, so I could see the graphics working better on VR because they're very like janky and low budget in a very, I think, a good looking way. Like, you could do low budget gaming and it looks good. It reminds me kind of like a Mighty Boosh sort of thing where you're like, yeah, of course it's cheap, but I like it. I like the look. And they did that on the Knuckles episode 4 or 5 that people complained about.
Yeah, that was like my favorite episode too.
Me too. I was like, you guys don't know you don't know Mighty Boosh, man. That's just, it was cool. And they're like, it needed more Knuckles, and I'm like, I agree, they needed more Knuckles, but they should have done a doll of Knuckles as for that episode. But
instead of Ken Penders, as a puppet,
we know that Sega is now finally working on a new Jet Set Radio game. Do you think it will affect the allure of these inspired games in the future?
I think if anything, these games will become more relevant because when the next Jet Set Radio game comes out, it's not going to play like the first and second game. It's going to play like something completely different. And I think people will look to Bomb Rush Cyberpunk as their way of getting that taste of the first two games. Yeah. And that's not a bad thing. I mean, for the longest time, we relied on fan games for new classic Sonic until finally Sonic Mania and Sonic Superstars came out. So I don't think Sega will ever make like a side genre of Jet Set Radio that feels like those early games, because like I mentioned, when they made those games, they were trying to make the best game they could, and they came out a little janky, but that's why we love them. And now we have people making essentially like demakes of games to resemble games that were held back by, Dreamcast and Xbox's
graphics limitation, right? The RAM limitation and how big the maps could be. I agree. I think the allure might I think they might just do, if Bomb Rush 2 does good, I think we'll see more of this. As you could tell, there's a lot of developers, especially in the recently, like the last maybe 10 years, that have been really trying to actually accomplish their Jet Set Radio clone dreams out there, or inspirations. So I love to see it, because then it kind of puts Jet Set Radio from it's just that weird niche game that came out or whatever years ago, to no, this game has a fan base, an underground fan base, quite like Earthbound, which, like Undertale, is, people consider that a clone, I guess, or a spiritual successor, or a game that's inspired heavily by Earthbound. So, and that's its own franchise that probably sold more than both Earthbound games put together, or 3 games. So it's interesting, but I don't think this game, maybe. It would suck if Bomb Rush Cyberpunk 2 is so good that it just outsells the next Jet Set Radio. That would be a bad look, obviously. How do you feel about that? That would be.
I can't imagine that happening. That'd be wild, though.
I agree. It would be wild. So
but
you want to talk? I'm saying, you want to finish anything you want to say in the end of the episode?
No, I'm happy that this Patreon pick was made, because, like I said, it turned me around on Bomb Rush Cyberpunk. I think I was applying my hover hate to the wrong game. So
I think so too. I agree. I was surprised when I downloaded it, when I bought it. I was like, wow, this is the real deal.
Yeah, 100%. And in our Patreon, we have some memories. In fact, we have a memory from Zachary Ross, who's actually going to talk a little bit about Jet Set Radio. So he says, Jet Set Radio is many things. It's a fantastic IP, it's SEGA at their most creative, it's genre transcending, and it's a product of its time. On a technical level, it's everything you would want from a game. The controls are tight and the story bombastic. The visuals define cell shading. The music is so deeply connected to pop culture that it is so heavily influenced in the settings of late 90s Japan and its fashion. For a first stab at whatever SEGA wanted to create when they developed JSR, they didn't miss, and it has inspired many games for future generations of hardware. The game that comes the closest to recreating not only the original JSR, but also the time and essence of the original game is Bomb Rush Cyberpunk. This is a case of when copying is the most sincere form of flattery. It truly is sincere in its intent of bringing a player back into the world of JSR. That being said, I do feel that the environments of JSR were much more intentional in their creation because it portrayed current and real culture and pop culture no matter where you were on the playfield. Colors and textures used in the environment portrayed a changing Japan and a rebellion from youth to renew the aging Showa-era streets into a more vibrant and chaotic scene. I don't think that other games that are similar to JSR take culture past and present into account to ensure that environments in the way that JSR did. Personally, JSR was a game that my little brother and I bonded over. He appreciates everything JSR related, and especially cataloging the history of one of the main groups to license their music in the game, Guitar Vader. Just JSR is in the end is one of those rare games that everyone takes a little piece away from that inspires them, whether it be programming, music, or aesthetic. What is rare though is that this is a game that everyone finds fun. And yeah, I think Zachary really nails a thing that I, as a JSR purist, always point out, is that these games came out of a very specific group of people from a very specific time making a commentary on Japanese culture in a changing era. And I think, a group of, I don't know what country Bomb Rush Cyberpunk's developers are from.
Dutch.
But I very much, what's that?
Dutch.
Yeah, exactly. So they are
New Amsterdam, makes sense,
They are very much copying an aesthetic, but they're not bringing in, like the true reason for why Jet Set Radio is what it is. It's kind of the equivalent of looking at the recipes that make sushi and then just making something yourself and calling yourself a Japanese chef. It's like...
Or it's sort of like that Splatoon game, the Nintendo one. That kind of does the same idea where it's copying aesthetics from new fashion in Japan. And it would be like if I make my own clone of the game, but it's set in Mexico. And it has nothing to do with Mexico outside of the name.
Right, but in Jet Set Radio, they're basing it on their own culture, their own music.
Right.
And there's a much deeper, as Zachary mentions, a much deeper connection to their parents, like in Japan, and their culture and how they responded to it and rebelled against it. And then you take Bomb Rush Cyberpunk, they're not looking at that. They're looking at aesthetically what Jet Set Radio did and faithfully replicating it, which they did a fantastic job at, but there's nothing deeper than that, in my opinion.
I agree.
Does that make sense?
Can a game exist where, like, they inspired by real world, and then you take those aesthetics, and then you're like, I'm gonna do it this way? Or you think they should make it whatever Amsterdam, whatever's popular, or whatever their style there is, emulate I
see no problem with them doing what they did. But it is, akin to like the very first Ninja Turtles comic, which was a commentary on how dark and brooding comic books had become at the time. And it was it was a parody and a tongue-in-cheek sort of take on the Frank Miller comics, where they're like, what if they were talking turtles? But the thing is, it worked.
Yeah.
And then when the cartoon came out, the cartoon was like someone else's take on the original Ninja Turtles. And then we had copycats to the point where Street Sharks came out, and they were actually aping Ninja Turtles style without any
Of the
any
back. So they're
any of the understanding that they are actually doing a parody of
a parody.
Grimdark comics in an area. So it's like, yeah, so it's to the point where the original intent and background is lost. And I don't think that's a bad thing, but I think it's something to be aware of. So that when a bunch of guys who want to make a Wii version of Jet Set Radio come about, they are 100% basing their art style and their story and everything on Jet Set Radio. They're not basing it on their own experiences as Japanese youth and how their parents were completely so something's lost, in my opinion. And there's a reason why we don't have Yakuza or Like a Dragon games developed by Western studios. Can you imagine that?
I wish. Can you imagine Spider-Man, the Yakuza game? So you could tell the viewers what next episode is going to be about?
So we will be back again for episode 153. It's going to be returning to the world of Sega video game controllers, but this time we're going to be talking about Sega accessories. So we're going to go through every major console and just call out some interesting ones, some essential ones, and some weird and failure ones.
That's all for Sega Talk. Bye.
Bye.